Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Rockwood number 555.BPC. This is a typical Rockwood 555 flush bolt. Standard lever extension flush bolt used in steel doors, sometimes also used in wood doors. But this is a BPC black powder coat. Is what makes this different than the other typical common finishes. Black. I've heard it called the new oil rubbed bronze, and indeed black is of late a very popular finish, so we've got some black flush bolts here. Okay. Powder coat is actually an incredibly durable process of finishing. Paint is literally sprayed. It's sprayed on dry. There's no fear of it sticking to anything. Any overspray is literally swept up. The way that it actually adheres itself to its surface is through having a positive or negative charge on the paint and then having the opposite charge on the material that you are painting. So what they would obviously do is set this component, the brass component, and this is cast brass, onto an environment where an electrical current is running through it. They will then suspend the paint at it with the opposite electrical charge, and that just, bam, sticks on there incredibly in a very durable sort of fashion. Okay, and powder coat is known to be a very durable type finish, and that's how it's achieved. You can, in essence, have any color powder coated at all, not necessarily from Rockwood, because they don't have the paint for any color, but I have been involved in a small amount of powder coating, knowing that there's as many different colors of powder coat as there could be colors of paint for a bedroom wall. So, in theory, hardware can be powder coated to lots of colors. Okay, this just happens to be black. This is the strike, also powder coated black. Okay. Now, other than it being black, it is a standard, common, ubiquitous flush bolt. Let's go through the extended description information down below that states that it is 6 3/4 tall, and that it's 1 inch wide. That's the most common footprint for a flush bolt, or at least it is nowadays. It's going to include its strike. It's probably about 2 1/4, and then about 15/16 wide, indeed. The other parts that are in the package are going to be its rod guide and its bolt head, or its bolt guide. That D shape matches the shape on the bolt. That's because when this is installed, they don't want that to turn on you, and that's what it'll end up looking like, either at the top or, of course, the bottom of the door. You're going to get your threaded rod. The length of this rod, this is called a 12-inch extension bolt. Nowhere on here does it measure 12-inch. Well, somewhere on here it does, but the overall length isn't 12-inch. You can see it's about 10 11/16. That's because the size of a flush bolt, when you are calling out the size, that dimension for this type of flush bolt is from the top or the bottom of the door to the center of the faceplate. So if you took this 10 11/16 rod and you installed it down into the body of the bolt, you then measured from the top of the door to the center of the faceplate, and that's going to be 12-inch. And just for sake of testing that, you can see we're about 10-inch to the center when I hold that up to the end of the plate. So if you needed a longer flush bolt, maybe you have an 8-foot door. 12-inch would be typical for 6/8 or 7/0, although you can have a longer rod. If you had an 8-foot, you probably would want to make it an 18 or a 24-inch length threaded rod, and this is nothing other than typical 1/4-20 threaded rod. You can have 30-inch, 36-inch, 48-inch, really any size that you want. It's 1/4-20 threaded rod. So if you bought a 6-foot threaded rod and cut it to the length that you needed to achieve a certain size, you'd have no problem with that. Okay. Other than that, you're going to get a total of 8 screws, 4 for the body, 2 for the strike, and then 2 for the guide plate itself. Now, you may have noticed that this is labeled, that is, the markings that would indicate to an inspector that this product has been tested and found in compliance with the duress of a fire door test. This would be permissible to use on fire-rated doors. In, well, a manual flush bolt is permitted to be used on fire-rated doors really in only one application. Generally, that application is exclusively, that I'm aware of, that application is a pair of fire-rated doors, let's say a condo building, or a hospital for that matter. You have a 6-foot deep, 8-foot long electrical vault, a storage door, some sort of mechanical on the inside. The doors are fire rated. The inactive door is permissible to have a manual flush bolt because there is no regular occupancy on the other side of the wall. Plus, the logic, as I have heard it said, is whenever someone has that door or those doors open, they're actively working in that room. And that because of the room type, access to utility material, electrical or whatever it might be, those doors are going to be closed and locked when the user is done. So because the human interaction there is going to always close and latch and lock those doors, that's why it's permissible there. But in no other instance on a fire-rated door do I notice that is permissible for use. So only in those applications would you be permitted to use a manual bolt. The rest of the extended description talks about the screws, the features for fire-rated hollow metal doors swinging and measuring up to 4 foot by 10 foot, up to 3 hour. Fits an ANSI A115 door and frame preparation. That literally means an A115 means that the doors and frame is going to be prepped so that this hardware will literally fit into it. It's an industry standard. So if you're looking for other flush bolts from other manufacturers, you'll just want to make sure if you have an A115 prep that they all comply with that. A 3/4 inch bolt throw, that means that when we throw this lever, that the rod is going to travel 3/4 inch, or the bolt head will travel 3/4 inch. Okay. 12-inch rod length, center of face to the bolt end in the retracted position. Other rod sizes are available, and longer bolt heads are also available as well. If you had an unusual situation where you needed a longer bolt head, like if you had an especially deep inverted channel on the bottom of the door. I've seen inverted channels on steel doors that were like really long. And when you tuck this back up so that it stays in its guide, okay, it sits there nice, but when you throw the bolt, it doesn't throw far enough to reach and to engage and position the bolt head into the strike as far as it needs to be thrown or to be captured inside the prep or the strike hole. So longer bolt heads are also available for those applications for your use. You could also have a longer bolt head if you had an unusual undercut as well. You could use a flush bolt on a door to hold the door in the open position as well, I suppose, and that undercut might be unusual there. Okay, there's a link below this video to that extra long bolt head. There's also a mention there to the Rockwood number 570 dustproof strike. That's a very elegant way to keep the floor nice and without any sort of exposed holes. A strike, if you were to prep this into the floor, let's say a wood floor in a mall or whatever masonry or stone type or terrazzo floor there might be in an application, you sure don't want just an open hole for that bolt to engage in, because it's going to fill up with dirt and debris, and then the flush bolt's not going to work correctly. Dustproof strikes are a larger rectangular plate that literally have a spring-loaded mechanism that keeps it completely flush and covered at all times when the bolt is not engaged. Now, there is a link below this video to the product brochure where we can take a look at the Rockwood 550 along with its sister products. And what's really there, pardon me, the 555 is there. The 550 is also there. It's the same bolt, except that it has an 1.25 inch wide faceplate. If you ever bump into a flush bolt and it's a little bit bigger than this, 1.25 inch, yeah, that's the Rockwood 550. They sure do exist. They were much more popular, I think, in the 1970s. But they're still made, they're still available, and you will occasionally encounter them. So don't assume it's the all but ubiquitous 1-inch wide prep. You've got the rabbeted pieces that are there should you encounter a door that has a rabbeted prep. That does indeed occasionally happen, where you've got to set this flush bolt down, and half of it is going to be prepped onto the maximum width of the door, but then there's a mortise that's here, and you need some way to fill in that leading edge, and they do make that rabbet piece for doing that. Give you a way to elegantly close that off. Looking through the rest of the document, they make a 555 that includes the 18 BFB, the bottom firebolt, which is a piece of hardware that's installed in both doors, and that upon triggering of the environment hitting a certain temperature, that firebolt shoots out and engages the opposite door. That can get you into an application where your client doesn't want anything in the floor. Hospitals want no piercings, no breakage into the floor itself, no flush bolt prep strikes in the floor, nothing, because it needs to be utterly clean. And having a bolt at the top only, in our prior example of the electrical closet, you could put a top bolt only and then put a fire bolt at the bottom, and that would permit you to be compliant without piercing the floor at all. So be mindful of that. Now there's also a link to the template. The template is there, and it's going to give you dimensional properties of the item. We've gone over all of the dimensional properties with the exception of the guide. It's 2-inch by 1-inch. You'll certainly need that. If you were just to install this into a round hole in the top of your door, I guarantee you that over time that bolt is going to turn and eventually unthread. That prep there is mandatory to have so that the bolt cannot turn and be kept captive. So they are expecting that this is going to be installed onto a metal door, period, end of sentence. Having said that, I have personally prepped hundreds of doors, wood doors, for this hardware, and I have seen likely thousands of doors with this hardware on a wood door application. If it's a steel door and it's fire rated, your factory is going to prep that for you, and they're going to just simply have the ANSI A115 preparation done, and you're in good shape. Really, when you prep for hardware like this, you need to just tell them, or tell your factory, maybe send them a template, but then also tell them the height, 12-inch, 18-inch, whatever it might be. You basically have just a couple of easy preparations to do. You'll have the body prep, and they're saying they want 5 1/4-inch mortise, or at least a cavity for it, and that would certainly be compliant. We're not nearly 5 1/4 on what our body would require, but where they're coming in with 5 1/4 is the fact that the screws are up here and down here, and 5 1/4 is going to fall somewhere about here to somewhere about here. Give the hardware adequate room to breathe. You're going to need a they don't give us a width of the body prep, but they're saying that it's supposed to be 1 inch wide, and then it's going to be 1 3/8 deep. That would certainly handle it. Okay, 1 3/8, would certainly handle it. Nothing really projects substantially off the back side, even though it does a little bit. That spring flares out a little bit, maybe an additional 1/4 inch. Yeah, not even. But the fact of the matter is maybe 1/8 of an inch. 1 3/8 is what they're calling for. Now, if you're going to try to install this onto a wood door, I say, okay, it's no problem. I've, again, personally done it hundreds of times. The issue is that you need knowledge of how to go about doing it. So you can look at this and you can say, well, I can easily prep that into the edge of the door. I'm just going to make my 5 1/4 prep. You don't even have to go 1 inch wide. You can probably go 7/8 because you've got shoulder room there. 1 3/8 deep. Then come back and do your plate. That thickness of that plate, they state that it's 1/8 of an inch. Again, 1 inch by 6 3/4. That's easy. You can mortise that, super simple. The trouble comes in getting that rod from the bottom or the top of the door. So imagine drilling from the top or bottom of the door all the way through the door to the cavity you've created. so that you can then run this bolt into it. And that is inherently the problem. Drilling that hole straight without exploding out the stile or coming close to the face veneer is absolutely a real concern. You would not want to try that freehand. And not that you can't drill a hole straight that's, you know, probably 8-inch long or 9-inch long. The problem is that you have wood of disparate densities. If you've got an oak PC5 construction type door, and in the sense of you've got a PC5 door where let's say you've got an 1.25-inch stile, and then you've got particle board that's bonded to that, supposedly bonded to the inside of the stile. 1.25 inch, and it could be more, maybe it's a little bit less, but you're going to notice that the edge of the door to the center of that bolt is 3/4 inch. Let's say that your stile is a little bit smaller. Now you've got part of your bit literally breaching the outside of that material, or if your stile is made up of multiple pieces, now you've got your bit literally trying to skim through, wood of disparate densities. That drill bit is naturally going to want to seek the less dense material, right? So now, having told you how horrible it could be, it could also be super simple. I've again done hundreds of these. The trouble percentage is a single-digit number. We do sell a fixture that will bolt on or clamp onto the edge of the door with a long aircraft extension style bit that you can work in, and you have a long bushing that gives you a nice guide so that you're not literally doing it freehand. You're working it in, pulling it out, and working it in. You'll drill that hole straight in almost every instance. And that's really all you need. You need a long drill bit, and then you need that fixture, and it works out really great. If you want assistance with that, let us know. We'll help you with those tools. But that's how you would go about doing it in the field if you're doing a non-rated wood door. Obviously, you couldn't prep in the field that fire-rated door because that preparation would void the fire rating of the integrity of the door and opening itself. So we've talked about machining the material. The rest is covered. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Rockwood products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I'm quite partial to Rockwood, and it's simply because there's many reasons, but let's go through them. Prompt, reliable, predictable, and dependable shipping lead times, exceptional technical support and customer service, incredible quality, and a confluence of value and quality that I really think is second to none. The complete package is second to none, and I would urge that if you're considering a project, take a good look at Rockwood, because I think people that once are accustomed to the level of customer service usually don't try to fix a problem that they don't have, sort of scenario. Sold as each. When you buy one, we're going to send you one. Generally, flush bolts are needed in multiples of 2, so be mindful of that. If you need 2, be sure to buy 2. Any questions on the Rockwood 555 and a black powder coat or any other Rockwood product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.